all the time. And yes, I am staring into the sun, so sorry for the squinting. However, I wanted to get a good angle on my stinging nettle. So far I still don't have a good or huge crop. I started this from seed a couple years ago, but the plants get bigger every year that they come back, and eventually they're going to spread out. I don't want it to fill this area up too thick, but now is actually a really good time for me to get started on harvesting and then let it come back and then harvest more and let it come back. So I'm going to do that and then start and dehydrate it too. So I'll show you how I do that too. Okay, it's really important that you wear some kind of gloves if you want to get by this comfortably. And I found that your standard rubber kitchen gloves work the best. Garden gloves don't really work well because, like the ones I like to wear a lot, because of the mesh on them, the sting still gets through the mesh. So what I'm going to do is just cut these back up. I'm still a little bit new at harvesting, because before, when I first started doing this, I was just harvesting a leaf at a time. This is going to be the first time I've done it this way, where I've cut it back to a certain amount, hoping it will branch out like other herbs do, which I believe it will do, because I want to be able to collect more later in the year. But yes, these gloves are the best for harvesting. You don't want to use those little thin surgical gloves. The stuff will sting right through those. And then the garden gloves, unless they're real thick, like a good leather, you know, it'll still sting you through that. But even if it does sting you, it's really not that big a deal. You know, it's not that bad if you've never been stung by stinging nettle, unless of course you fall, your whole body gets covered into it, but just a couple of stings on your hand or arm, it's really not that bad. I still end up doing it. So I'm just putting this back. And I'm sure somebody's going to tell me I'm doing this wrong, because again, I'm really kind of still trying to figure out the best way to harvest my stinging nettle, but I know it'll come back and bush out even more. Start with, and I'll take it inside and rinse it off, and then get to dehydrating it. Alright, so I got my gloves back on, and one of these days I'll find some extra smalls, because I really hate having to use these because they're just too big. These are smalls and they're swimming on me. But anyways, you can see I went ahead and harvested some dandelion flowers, since they're coming on good out there, and I'm running the dehydrator anyway. And what I'm going to do, now you can just lay these on here if you want. I would rather not have this big old fat stem in here, because that just kind of slows down the dehydrating time. So I'm going to break all these leaves off and then lay them on here. And keep moving, just keep making some more trays. Just pile another tray. Now these clean screens, I highly recommend if you're going to get the Nesco or Open Country dehydrator. I do have some that ended up warping. I don't know if I just had my dehydrator too hot, left it too long, but these are really nice for using for small things like herbs, you know, especially when you're doing things like thyme and rosemary and lavender leaves, but also things that are a little messier, like tomatoes, peaches, because they're just a lot easier to clean off. Now I will be putting a link below to the Nesco dehydrator, which again, the Open Country, this is the motor I'm using here is the Open Country, but they're the same dehydrator made by the same company. This I've had for about 15 years, and I bought a backup dehydrator just in case this one ever breaks down. I'll always have something, but also so I could get more trays. The thing I prefer about this dehydrator over the Excalibur is the fact that I can just keep stacking as many trays as I want to. Pretty much. You can go up to 12 trays. Though I typically try to only use 8 max, because when I get up to 12 it doesn't dehydrate as quickly. However, if you're doing mostly just herbs anyway that dehydrate fast, then going 8 to 12 is you can get a lot of herbs done in a day that way. So I do occasionally do that. So there's another tray. You'll see still got pieces of calendula flower on here. See how many trays I get filled up. Oh, just this little harvest. Actually, this is the biggest harvest I've ever had off my stinging nettle. And again, I grew this from seed. So the first year I really didn't get much of anything. The next year I got a little bit more. Last year I got a little bit more. And this year I think I'm going to get tons and tons, which is just great. Stinging nettle is very healthy for you, especially if you have low thyroid. It's good for helping get that thyroid gland working right. Just giving you all the right nutrients and stuff you need for that. And I would say for all of your adrenal glands. And let's see, it's high in protein. So if you're a vegan and you're looking for a good source of protein, get away from the soy and start looking more into your greens, like your kale, your stinging nettle. Mostly what I like to do with my stinging nettle is I do like to dehydrate it. I have cooked it before. I've added it fresh to things and then cooked it. Obviously you can't eat it fresh or it will sting the heck out of you. But there's a lot you can do in adding it to your diet. A lot of people will make a good healthy tea out of it. Stinging nettle tea is excellent for all kinds of ailments. I will try to add those because when I'm doing stuff like this I can't always remember what they all are. But I will try to add that in some notes here in the caption. So you can just see a good list, or maybe even add a picture in here with a list of stuff. So I'm going to go, I got to put the top on. So again, you can see this is what the open country looks like. But it is the same dehydrator as the Nestle that I'm posting below. I actually bought this brand new, but I got it at an auction, like I said, at least 15 years ago, and I have not had a bit of problem with it. And so these are great dehydrators. Highly recommend them. And again, a few years ago, I bought a backup Nesco. All the pieces work together just so I could have a backup. That's it. And so far, I've yet to need it. I'm going to go plug this into the solar outlet in the other room, and when these are all dry, I will come back and then show you what I do next. My stinging nettle is mostly all dry. I still have a couple more trays left to go. I've just been taking one tray off at a time. Now I dry my herbs at a little bit higher setting than what is recommended, but I check them frequently and I take them off as they're drying. And so technically you're supposed to dry them at a lower heat. It's going to preserve their nutrients better, but I'm not dehydrating them at such a high heat that's going to kill their nutrients. So then as soon as they're dry and crispy, then I take the tray and and you can see now I can touch the stinging nettle. I still get kind of poked a little bit, but it's not like a stinging nettle sting. Once your stinging nettle has been cooked or dried, it's not going to sting you anymore. So you can touch it with your bare hands. But it's still going to be a little bit pokey and you'll feel that. Now what I like to do is just kind of run it through my fingers like this. And if there's any stems that didn't quite, get dried all the way through, I just pull them out. Or if the stems are too woody and hard, I'll pull those out too. That's a matter of choice, because if you're going to throw it into cook stuff, those things will cook down anyway. I just try to keep some of that out of there so it's not, you don't have tough bits. And every now and then I miss some, and no big deal. It's all good. So I just like to put them in a bowl and break them up with my fingers. And then I'll put it in the jar. Like I said, I have a couple more trays. And once, I believe those trays should pretty much fill this jar up. And for now, I'm just going to keep the stinging nettles in a separate jar because I don't have very many other greens right now that I'm, because the rest of our garden's way behind. But I like to mix these into my mixed green blend. And so I will add these in a bigger jar later when I have more things like grape leaves and strawberry leaves and kale and different things like that I'm dehydrating. And then I'm going to mix it all together. And that also includes dandelion leaves. So then I just take a used lid. This had jalapenos, was used on a jalapeno jar. Once this is all full, and I show this one a lot, but I know I'm always getting new subscribers that this is a whole new thing. They've never seen this before. I take my Food Saver lid, which this comes in the regular mouth and the wide mouth like this is, It's the attachment that would normally go with the food saver. And then I use a brake bleeder to seal it up. So I just stick that tip, you put your tip on the end of your hose, stick the tip into the hole, and just pump it by hand up to 15 psi. Okay? And I'll link to the brake bleeder below as well. And then I have a nice sealed jar. So when I'm ready to put the rest of the stinging nettle in there, I'll just open this jar up, top this off, then seal it again, and it's that easy. And then, like I said, when I have more greens to mix in with this, oh, raspberry leaves is another one. The raspberry leaves I use in the tea blend. But there's a lot of different things, you know, some of them more unconventional by the way of, you know, our modern American way of thinking that go in this, but good healthy greens, just like I said, the grape leaves, the strawberry leaves. Strawberry leaves, by the way, you want them fully dry all the way. You do not want them somewhere in between. But you should have your stuff fully dry anyway if you're going to seal it up like this for long-term food storage. You don't want any moisture in there. And typically I will put, for the dried goods, just go ahead and put the lid back on just to make sure it stays sealed. And I keep a spray bottle of rubbing alcohol, so when I've got writing like this, that's a permanent marker, I just spray that on there. I'm going to leave it for a few seconds, and then you want to make sure you get a dry rag and simply rub that off. I probably could have left it a little bit longer, but you can see how good that works. Now I can write stinging nettle on it. Nettle is good enough. You don't have to write stinging. You know what it is. 2017. And there we go. So that's what I do with my stinging nettle. And watch for more videos on dehydrating different kinds of greens and other stuff. And then I'll show probably again me making a mixed greens blend, because it changes when I start getting enough vegetables to actually have, you know, greens throughout the year to actually have enough to start blending it all at once and drying them all together. It changes as the year goes, because you're going to have some things that are more available and some things that are not. Just like the raspberry leaves, they're best if they're harvested when they get to a good size, but before the raspberries really start coming on. So they'll be doing that. I'll be drying up mints and stuff for my tea blend, and I'll be doing videos of that as well. So watch for that. And you can look for the Nesco dehydrator. Again, that one there that I showed you is the Open Country, but it's made by the same country, and it's made by the same company. And I also have a Nesco, which is exactly like that one, just the color is different, and it's the same thing. Very, very much recommended, especially if you're wanting something that's not quite as expensive as the Excalibur. And as I said before, I prefer the fact that it has the stackable trays, and I can go as high or low as I want, and it just works really good for me. Okay, so that's it on stinging nettle, and watch for those more dehydrating videos coming out real soon. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.